Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Matt Ray, Brent Hubbs, and Rob Lewis. As always, big thanks and shout-outs to Exterior Home Solutions. For a free estimate, give them a call today if you have the need at 865-524-5888 or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Before we get started, got a whole lot of questions to get into. Want to remind you guys about that June promo we have going on right now over at Volquest.com. 50% off your first year or $1 for 3 months. Really, really good deal for first-time users. 50% off your first year or $1 for 3 months. No better time to join the Volquest family than right now. All right, let's get into some of these mailbag questions. We got baseball, we got football, recruiting, basketball, a little bit of everything NIL related. Let's go to IM410EC. Has Boo Carter publicly or privately stated if he prefers offense over defense, and would the Vols give him a shot on offense to keep him from going to another school that is recruiting him to play offense, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really came out and said anything publicly about that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that this has kind of always been the way that it was. Some schools have recruited him as a running back. Some schools have recruited him as a slot receiver. Some schools have recruited him as a nickel corner, and some schools have recruited him as a safety. As we get here closer to crunch time, you know, the thing for Boo Carter is, you know, going to be making that final decision, obviously. I don't think it's going to weigh in that big. I think he's looking at a lot of different factors to try to make the right decision. And I don't expect Tennessee to come in and say, hey, you know, if you want to play slot receiver to come here, you can. I think Tennessee's recruited him the way they've recruited him throughout the process, and he's fully aware of that.
We'll go next to Gator Killer. What are some of the likely outcomes for the Congress NIL debate this week?
I don't know that there's any outcome in terms of specific outcome. I think, though, this is a positive step in the right direction because you're getting everybody in the room to have a conversation and educating those decision makers who, quite frankly, haven't heard all sides of the conversation. I still think we're a million miles away, Rob, from any kind of federal legislation or being there. But I think that this is an important step, that it's not just what the NCAA is telling the legislative bodies or what athletic departments are telling legislative bodies, their constituents locally. It's you know, the collective side of things as well. And I think this is quite frankly, a conversation that should have happened a year ago. Compared to where it is now. But because of where it's gotten to down the road, it is a much needed conversation that I think is more of an educational thing than anything else right now, Rob.
Yeah, I agree, Brent. I mean, I'm not studied intently, but it's a subcommittee meeting. It's not like it's not like it's on the ground floor of the, you know, House Representatives. I mean, it's backroom panel meetings. I think they interviewed 5 or 6 people. To me, it's more of a headline grabber than anything substantial. Because, I mean, you said, I think this is it did you coin the phrase? I know you didn't coin the phrase, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but I mean, I think that was your original thought on this whole NIL thing 2 years ago. And I subscribe to that. I mean, maybe you get some guidelines or some parameters, but I just don't think Congress is going to jump into it. And again, this week it's a subcommittee. You know, you're talking to 10 or 12 members of Congress. It's not, to me, it's not an earth-shattering deal. It's kind of a cover your backside type thing. I think would probably, you know, elected people that want to go back home and tell, you know, college football fans in their state, you know, yeah, hey, this is what we heard about it.
And to that extent, a couple more questions here, but you know, with the whole toothpaste out of the tube. Is it possible for a Congress decision to nullify existing NIL contracts? I mean, that's definitely no, correct?
Well, I mean, yeah, if there was a federal law, but I mean, you're a million miles away. Again, this week is a nothing. I mean, it's a subcommittee hearing. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a subcommittee conversation. It's a starting point that should have started a long time ago, but I mean, should have started before the law ever came into place.
Yes.
But the NCAA thought that Congress was going to take care of them. The Supreme Court was going to take care of it. They didn't have to worry about it. They didn't. So no, I mean, nobody's coming out of Washington, Mac, going, all right, tear up every deal that's out there. That's just, I mean, that's lawsuits after lawsuits. So that's just not even a remote possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we're 2 years down the road now, and I mean, you have to wonder. I mean, guys that are in college right now receiving NIL deals, regardless of where these talks are now, like I said, subcommittee, and it just seems like it's far off. I don't think anybody that's there right now, maybe some freshmen that hang around for, a year or two longer than they're supposed to or whatever, they might be impacted by it. I don't see it right now.
All right, we'll move next to Hoover Vol. Kaner, what do you know about this new French JUCO baseball commits, Robin Villanueva? From Weatherford Community College, JUCO ranks. Tennessee's gotten a lot of players out of there the last couple of years, 63 games this past year. He's a lefty. He pitched a little bit, also played first base, 28 home runs. I think he had over 100 RBI, which is really good, 74 runs, and looked good doing it. And a former hockey player as well. So you talk about an athlete that is hoping to boost Tennessee up a little bit next year. That is what you're looking at getting in Robin Villanueva. And, of course, he committed to Tennessee earlier this week. Let's go to Sean John 09. Most people believe Coach Rodney Garner is the best assistant coach we've had at Tennessee. I'm curious how he fits in with the rest of the staff. I say this because he is aggressive in his coaching and didn't come with Heupel from Florida. Brent, I feel like everybody loves him some Rodney Garner, right?
Well, yeah, because there's complete and utter transparency with Rodney Garner. I mean, what you see is what you get. There's no agendas. Rodney Garner's not looking to be a coordinator. He's not looking to jump around and try to be the next this or try to be a head coach or any of those things. He wants to be a position coach. I think he has a good relationship with Tim Banks. I think he has a good relationship with Brian Jean-Marie. I think that defensive side of the ball, even though none of them were a family before they came to Tennessee, I think they've got good chemistry together. I really do. I think they have gelled well together. I think their personalities fit well together. And, I think Rodney's a heck of a football coach. And because of that, I think everybody respects him. And look, I mean, do they disagree on things? Sure they do. Does it get heated in a football game when the offense goes 40 seconds and punts it back to you? Yeah, I mean, that's part of coaching and part of it. So it's not all holding hands and singing Kumbaya all the time. But I think the chemistry in this program is really good. I think the staff chemistry is good. I think that's why you've seen a bunch of guys stick around this program. And Tennessee's not had a ton of people run into the transfer portal through 2 years of Josh Heupel and this staff being together.
And Hubbard, don't you think that says something about not just Rodney, but Willie also? Because I mean, those are two guys that they got 60 years combined, coaching experience, and Willie has been a D coordinator. I mean, those are guys, if they wanted to rock the boat, I mean, they could rock the boat, and neither one of them are those type of individuals.
No, and again, I mean, I think when you look at this thing across, I mean, this is a big opportunity for Tim Banks. This is his first real opportunity to run a show, which he's doing. And Brian Jean-Marie's not in a hurry to go jumping around somewhere. He's got kid in high school in Knoxville. And I just, sometimes you have some coaches, Matt, who are just on this quest for the next promotion. And I think because of where these guys are on the defensive side of the ball in particular, and the experience that they have, they're comfortable in their own skin. They're obviously making good money. And so those guys aren't looking – it's not all about their personal brand and their personal resume. And as a result of that, I think there's good harmony there.
And maybe it's a little cliche, but I think they're all, on the same mindset of they knew what, the challenge was for them when they came to Tennessee. They knew it was going to be hard to, have an effective defense, going along with this high tempo offense and the, problems it can cause when you're on the field so much. And I think now they're all at a point where they've, recruited pretty well and they want to see a finished product. So I think there is some harmony there. They're all striving for that. They seem to gel well, like you said. And I think they want to see where this thing can go on the defensive side of the football before, there's a bunch of jumping around or anything like that happens.
Well, and remember this, too, about Willie Martinez and Rodney Garner. And Rob, you were making this point, I think, a couple of weeks ago, maybe on a podcast. I mean, those guys chose to come back here. They had worked here before. They knew exactly what Tennessee was. And and they enjoyed their time at Tennessee, and they were both in different eras. I mean, Rodney Garner was here when Philip Fulmer was the head coach and Tennessee was rolling big time, and Willie Martinez was here when Tennessee was trying to get back rolling. But both of them enjoyed being a part of the Tennessee family to the point that they both wanted to come back here. So it wasn't just about the next job as a platform to go somewhere else. It was a destination for them because they both had great respect for the program, great respect for the area, and great love for the area. And that's why they wanted to come back and work here.
All right, Matt, we'll go to you. A little recruiting talk here. How does the offensive line board look right now? How does it shake out for June and July? Ronan O'Connell, Max Anderson, Marquez Easley, Satterfield, any of these guys close to a decision? And which ones are leaning towards Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the ones you mentioned, Ronan, Marquez Easley, Satterwhite, they've all, been recruited by Tennessee, for a while. I think at one point Tennessee's been in a really good spot for each. I think Tennessee continues to be in a good spot for Ronan O'Connell, and he'll take an official visit here in a couple of weekends. Satterwhite, he was at Clemson. The Vols have gone back and forth there with some momentum with the Tigers, but right now, it looks like they're going to survive, that official visit and have their chance later in the month, and he'll decide sometime in July most likely. Max Anderson, Tennessee's been in a good position there. They've had him out here. He'll be back this weekend for his official visit and look to, get some more questions answered. I don't know what Max's timeline's like. I think he could decide after these official visits. We'll see what happens with him, as the weekend plays out. Marquez Easley, Glenn Ellerby has, done a pretty good job there of recruiting Marquez Easley. He's a quiet kid. He's kind of in the middle of nowhere where he is in the Midwest. But you have to, overcome some heavy hitters in that one. He was at Georgia last weekend for an official visit, and, the two-time defending national champion showed well. He'll see Alabama, and then he'll see Tennessee. And it feels like that's really where the decision is going to come down. He moved his decision timeline up. We had hinted about that in the war room. He didn't really want it out there at the time, but he moved it up from October to July. So these official visits are now so much more important for a guy like Marquez Easley. And then another name that hasn't been mentioned a whole lot, was mentioned earlier in the spring, is Bennett Warren. He is supposed to come in for an official visit later in the month. We'll see, what comes of that. Tennessee really wanted to get him out here in the spring. Glenn Ellerby was by there to evaluate him again during the evaluation period, but he just didn't make it out to campus from Texas. So you get a shot at him with official visits, and I don't think he's a guy that's really rushing the decision process. In talking to him, he's pretty meticulous. Academics are a big part, so he's a guy that you'll at least get to swing at.
All right, Rob, we got some hoops talk. Upper East Tennessee Vols. What does Josiah Jordan-James mean to the basket Vols' chances in 23-24? And your favorite question. Go ahead and predict that starting five.
I think getting Josiah back is big. I mean, I don't want to say, I don't want to make too much of it, but in a sport where we increasingly see, I think every spring where, experience matters, experience really matters in the backcourt. Tennessee with Josiah, Santi, and Zakai, when he's healthy, you've got three, guards who have played a ton of basketball. I mean, I'm going to wait for Sports Information All-Star Tom Sokoviak to crunch the numbers, but Tennessee's got to have one of the most experienced backcourts in the nation when you're talking about starts in Santiago and Josiah and Zakai, who started the majority of the games this past year, but gives you incredible lineup flexibility again, and we've seen Rick Barnes get more and more comfortable and fall more in love with that small ball action with Josiah at the four. You were hoping that you could do that this year, but you still had to mix and match some pieces. Now for sure that you can do that. I think it takes pressure off a lot of guys. Jemai was going to have to step up big time. Dalton Neck was going to have to be absolutely what you were hoping he was going to be as a transfer. Now you get Josiah again, take some pressure off guys. They can ease in and gives Rick a ton of lineup flexibility. Once again, some people have said, I wish he would have moved on. I think that's silly. I mean, when you get a guy who's played as much big time basketball back as him. I mean, I think that's a plus. As far as starting lineup, I don't know. Without talking about November, I don't assume Zakai will be there. Not seeing these guys are just getting to campus and practice together. I thought Freddie Dillon, Santiago, Josiah, Jonas Adu. What is that? Is that 4 and Jemai Meshack?
No Ledlam?
Maybe, but not here on June 6th. He's not my starting lineup.
You could throw a percentage on that. What would it be?
That's I'm 48% sure that's going to be my starting lineup. Which reminds, speaking of percentages, do we have an update? Is AP made the turn? Do we have any word from Shinnecock? Nothing.
Shinnecock is today. He was
Sleepy Hollow. Is he currently Sleepy Hollow?
Garden City. He was tired. He was tired when I talked to him last.
It's a rough life, that's for sure.
It is. I mean, it's exhausting, I'm sure.
Dude was telling me I was gone out of town too much. Good Lord. I don't think so. Let's go to hitter. Cameron Fountains, of course, he went ahead and committed to USC. I think the South will still pursue this kid, or has that bridge burned?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you give up on Cameron Fountain because he committed to USC. I mentioned this earlier in the week on the General's Quarters. I think some of the most surprised people that Cameron Fountain committed to USC was USC. They felt like they put their best foot forward in talking to some folks. They thought they had a good visit. They still thought Tennessee was the team to overcome. And that happens from time to time. You're talking about a kid that hasn't taken a lot of visits outside of the Southeast. He's seen, a small collection of schools. His first official visit, he gets to USC, and the red carpet's rolled out for him, and they show him and the family a good time. And he came back home and decided, he didn't want to commit. But now, the waiting game between June and December is on for Cameron Fountain. He says he's not going to take any more visits, but I don't see it. I don't see it holding. I think he'll take some more visits, and I think Tennessee will have another chance to swing there as this process goes on.
Same with J.J. Harrell. Decommits from Tennessee earlier this week. His OV was later this month. Is he still going to take that? Tennessee's still going to pursue him?
I don't expect J.J. Harrell to be here later in the month, and I don't expect Tennessee to pursue very hard there, the rest of the way. We'll see. I mean, you still keep the line in the water, but I don't think the Vols are going to push ultimately too hard for J.J. Harrell moving forward.
All right, let's go to ATX Vol. Within the next 5 years, could you see the Southeastern Conference and possibly other conferences leaving the NCAA, Brent?
Well, that talk's been out there for a decade, but I think the pressure's mounting. We'll see. You got a new president with the NCAA. What is his vision? I don't think any of us know exactly where it's at. Where does NIL take us? What happens to some other conferences and that type of thing? So, I mean, if the last 5 years have given us any indication of what's going on in college athletics, what we know is the next 5 years are unknown. And there's a lot of changes potentially coming in a lot of different directions. So I think it's, too soon to say. But I think the leverage of the student athlete right now is never been stronger. And as a result of that, I think the leverage of conferences has never been stronger. If you're a stable conference. Now, the Pac-12 doesn't have leverage. They don't have SEC leverage. The ACC doesn't have SEC leverage. You've got two true super conferences out there right now, Rob, in my opinion, in the Big Ten and the SEC. That's where the big money's at. That's where the TV money's at right now. Those guys are swinging the biggest sticks, and their athletes in their leagues are helping swing that stick.
Yeah, I think when you said that, however, I started thinking, it's pretty fascinating. When do you think it started to shift that way towards the conferences having the power? Was it just the advent, the television contracts? I mean, you think was kind of the impetus for it, because it just didn't feel like it used to be this way. I mean, SEC, Big Ten, always a big deal, but now it seems like they're the engines of change or the driving force behind things in college athletics more so than the quote unquote overall governing body, the NCAA itself.
Well, I think two things jump out to me. One, big picture standpoint. When the NCAA lost control of the college football championship. That means the college football playoffs not run by the NCAA. It's not like the NCAA basketball tournament where the NCAA is in charge. They're a spectator to the college football playoff system and how that goes about. So I think that changed it dramatically because that brought the TV power into more play. For the two conferences specifically, for me, it's the evolution of the SEC network and the Big Ten network. And the fact, Matt, that they have all their sports on television, there's additional revenue there because of that. They get their games on TV, and what it did is it's created depth in that conference. That while it's Georgia and it's Alabama supposedly as the two top dogs, there's depth underneath it with the production value and everything that this conference brings to the table that you just don't have in the ACC. The ACC network is 7-8 years behind the SEC network. And look, when the Big Ten network first came out, I wasn't sure about it because it wasn't attached to ESPN. But I'm telling you, you go anywhere up north, the Big Ten network's a big deal. It's a profitable big deal that's given more power to that conference, much the same way the TV package for the SEC is given. Has separated this conference from other conferences around the country. So I think those are a couple of the two biggest things.
All right, we got a couple more questions to get into, more about the Tennessee and the Super Regional matchup, Tennessee recruiting, all that good stuff. But first, let's get a word from our proud sponsors over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
All right, we will continue on, and again, a big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions. June promo, 50% off your first 6 months or $1 for your first year. 50% off your first year or $1 for 3 months. That is the June promo happening right now at Volquest.com. Minnesota Vol, knowing that Coach Tony Vitello, Danny White obviously wanted to host a Super Regional, and presuming Greg Sankey would have preferred Tennessee hosting a Super Regional. What types of conversations and meetings are AD Danny White's and Sankey having, well, with the powers to be to try and make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future? Look, bottom line, and Brent, please jump in here when I'm done. Bottom line, both teams are deserving of this, okay? They were playoff teams. They both put in a bid with the opportunity to host a regional or a super regional if it got to that point. Both venues did it last year. Both venues are accommodating. Both programs had good and successful seasons. Both were deserving. But this decision wasn't based on playing resume, because if it was, it'd be Tennessee hands down. RPI, shrink the schedule. Just look at what Southern Miss has done against SEC schools this year. And I'm not saying that they're going to lose this weekend. I'm just saying if it's based on playing resume, that's not what the decision was. Bottom line, it came down to who you know. That's what happened. It came down to who you know. And Brent, I'm not sure how much thought actually went into this, and if it was more of a foregone conclusion. If this scenario arises, this is what we're going to do. Tennessee's going to hit the road, go to Southern Miss. It's going to be a great environment, and we'll see if Tennessee can win on the road just like it did against the Clemson Regional. Both venues are deserving. I just don't think that there was much of a conversation had there.
Well, and this is where the NCAA gets themselves in routine trouble. Okay, this is why there's the previous question that we had in this podcast about when are the two going to when's the conference going to break away from the NCAA? Because it's the NCAA's lack of transparency, Rob. And it's their lack of transparency in so much of what they do. Okay. And it's not just in this process, but it's the committee's going to meet on the second Tuesday of every month that ends in Y that has 31 days on it, to determine somebody's eligibility. It's this guy gets eligible, this guy's not eligible. Their resume their appeal for being eligible appears to be the exact, very, very comparable to each other. Why was there a difference? We don't know. Okay. That's the problem that the NCAA gets into here. This committee has had a bad 2 weeks. I said it on the message board, and I truly believe this. There's no way, and I'm not knocking Kentucky, so Kentucky fans, get out of my DMs. I'm not saying anything bad against you as a school, but there's no way, based on the criteria for hosting a regional, Kentucky should have hosted a regional.
Yep.
If you can't provide hotel rooms, you can't come back and say, we're going to give you a dorm, and that's going to suffice. Because here's what you've opened up. Next year, when somebody in another league says something and presents their bid, you can't come back and say, well, you don't have enough hotel accommodations. Well, you've already shown that that's not important, right? Here's the bottom line. Anytime you bring a human element into this decision-making process, which is what you do with this committee, you don't know. You don't know what the answer is. Am I saying Southern Miss got this bid to host a super regional because one of the committee members' sons plays on the Southern Miss baseball team? No, but that's a hell of a bad looking optic, right?
Yep.
That's just the bottom line. It's a bad looking optic. You should seed that tournament. Okay, there should be a second tier, just like in the NCAA tournament. Who's the number 1, 2 seed? Who's the number 2 seed? And if you get into a situation where the top seed gets knocked out and you're going through this, let's get out of who offered more money and this, and let's give it, if the venue is a legit venue, which most of them are in college baseball, okay, let's just give it to the highest 2 seed, right? Seed them. That's what you need to do, and take out the human element so you don't have these optics that you have right now, because it's a bad look.
And I'll say this, I mentioned the War Room a couple weeks ago and on the board a little bit, as Tennessee heading into regional play, as Tennessee being one of the higher, ranked 2 seeds or whatever. I mean, there's no official ranking of 2 seeds. This isn't the March Madness tournament. This isn't basketball. But there is a pecking order, 100%. It's not public, but there 100% is a pecking order of 2 seeds. And, another contributing factor to this, Southern Miss was likely higher than Tennessee on that quote-unquote pecking order because the Southeastern Conference already had a ton of host sites for regionals. And Tennessee was further down a little bit. It was in conversation, but, when it lost A&M, it was not going to be a thing anymore. But it was further down that list because the NCAA didn't want to grant another host site to an SEC team. So, again, there's just a lot to this, and I think that with everything the NCAA is, you overcomplicate things. Oh, yeah, Tennessee beat the higher overall seed in Clemson. So, that could be another, feather in the cap to why Tennessee should host a super regional. It just is what it is. I'm going to get in a car and drive 7.5 hours and sit through rain and 95-degree heat for 3 days.
I mean, it's your specialty, EC. I just think it's absurd that the teams aren't seeded after the 1 seeds, like Brent was saying.
No.
That is so Mickey Mouse. And again, it goes back to what Brent was saying, the lack of transparency with that organization for, going back to the dawn of time has always just been a horrible aspect of the NCAA, in my opinion.
Well, and here's the other thing that needs to happen too. College baseball's on a step, getting ready, on the potential to take another step. I didn't say that very well, but college baseball is growing. Okay, we're paying coaches lots of money, right? You're building high end facilities now. It is a sport that's really growing in nature. Okay, so to yield its credibility even further, Matt, you got to get out of some of these Mickey Mouse backdoor. What happened there? The other thing that needs to happen too is there need to be more regional games on television. Listen, Chris Budden and Chris Burke and those guys, they did a great job with squeeze play over the weekend. It was fantastic. Okay, but this, for the money that's being spent in college baseball needs to have meetings and work to get better publicity and better expansion of eyeballs on them than what they have right now. This is not a good look for college baseball because you don't know how anything it makes it look small, still small time, and that's not where college baseball's at. Get more regional games on TV. Okay, you're a better product to watch than axe throwing or pickleball. Okay, get more games on TV and be more transparent and grow the sport, grow the fiber of the sport to continue with the product that's being produced out there. In my opinion,
the TSSAA does a better job with their postseason than NCAA. When you, I mean, can you imagine, not knowing where you're going to play next week ahead of time? I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but the fact that after the 1 seeds, it's just a jumble I just can't. I still can't get my head around it.
Just seed it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Just seed it. I mean, you do it in the NCAA tournament, and obviously that plays out, differently, but just seed it. 64
Rob,
teams just
last thing on this, and we got to move on. But Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, though. There is a Q&A after Selection Sunday, right? I mean, there's a Q&A. There's an interview type setting to somewhat say, all right, committee, why did you go this way? What merit did you value in this?
They make the rounds. I mean, they don't get grilled. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're not hooked up to a lie detector machine, but I mean, they go on and tell ESPN or Jim Nantz or whoever, what they were thinking, or, what went into this thought. And
so there's not one of those for baseball, obviously. And again, could you imagine something like this happen, Sweet 16 for March Madness? And that's what's happening right now for Tennessee baseball. So again, it's not the end of the world. You're going to go on you're still alive. You're going to go on the road. You're going to play, and Vitello and the gang is going to be ready to roll. But it's frustrating how it happened.
Yeah, and let me say this: this is not whoa, Tennessee got. I mean, and we're having this conversation because it affects the program we cover on a daily basis. I'm talking big picture.
Sure.
I'm talking this for the entire sport, not just Tennessee. Whoa, is Tennessee? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in general. Okay, just the whole narrative of the sport. That there's some things they need to do to help it further take the next step that has nothing to do with the ball being hit or a pitch being made or, getting a ground ball out. It has nothing to do with what happens between the white lines. It's some administrative stuff that they need to clean up, be more transparent about for the entire sport. I think it's important for them moving forward.
Let's go to Nashville 615. The knock on Josh Heupel when he got hired was that he could he recruit at the top level in the SEC? Has he proven that he can do that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee's done a really good job given the circumstances that they faced coming in, the unknowns that they had to battle during the first, the 2022 class. You had to sit down with kids and, have transparent meetings. We've been talking about the NCAA not being transparent. Well, during that time in June of that class, Tennessee sat down, had transparent meetings and tried to, show folks where things were, what they knew, and where they thought things would go and how they had handled different types of things. And, that's still hard to overcome in your initial class because the way the recruiting calendar has shifted, June is pretty much the new December or January, if you will, and you hadn't put a product on the field yet. You're selling a vision, and it's tough when you have that lingering over your head. And then, you go to, flip the script to 2023 and look at some of the guys they were able to land and some of the schools they were able to beat out for them and the battles they were able to get in after one year of product on the field. And then I think, you look here at where they're at now, you're going to get more of an answer on that in the coming months. But I think to this point, getting everything that was out there and what they had to overcome, I think Josh Heupel has shown that his program can recruit on that level. Now, you're in some big boy battles going into, the coming weeks here in June. You've got some big time, big name prospects on campus, and AP has said it, and I've said it. You're not going to win them all. It's not going to happen. Look at Georgia with Sammy Brown. Now, even the two-time defending national champions aren't winning them. You've got to win some. You've got to win your fair share. And until you see where these things shake out, I don't think there's any cause for panic just yet.
And in the world of recruiting, you gotta prove yourself every day. I mean, every day. That question, you can ask that question 2 years from now because it changes and you have to prove yourself each and every year in recruiting. And I'm not saying Josh Heupel hadn't, but I'm just saying you got to, it's ever evolving. You got to prove yourself every year in recruiting. That's just the way it is.
All right, let's jump back in, do a couple more baseball ones. This one's from Zeusify. With the Vols not playing at home for the Super Regionals, does that allow construction to start earlier? Brent, construction's not scheduled to begin over there at Lindsey Nelson Stadium to do anything heavy until late August. I mean, it's going to be a little bit. They got some things going on in the summer before they start doing some things, correct?
Yeah, there's some planning. They've hired an architect. They're finishing up some redesign and making sure some things are clear there. There's still some more, I think, some red tape that you've got to step through, from a governmental standpoint. And obviously they've got some cash in hand to spend from donations that have been given. So you're going to see things happening, but they didn't roll in backhoes and bulldozers at 10:30 Monday when the news came out Tennessee was heading to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So you'll see some stuff work, but it's going to be late summer, fall before they start really diving into anything.
Hey, Hubbard, does anything paint a picture for how much things have changed for that baseball program than when you're talking about construction? And if this had been 20 years ago, good and well, Coach Fulmer would have had construction in August delayed until they got through 2-a-days.
Oh, absolutely.
So they could practice on the field. You'd be like, oh, no. You're
absolutely. Not free. September 1 would be the earliest you would do anything because I've got to have that practice field. Of course, in fairness to Coach Fulmer at the time, he had about 70 yards of practice field to work with. Now they've got, 3 or 4 practice fields up there. But, yeah, I mean, that walk to – he still called it Lower Hudson, even though it was Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Yep. It was Lower Hudson down there that they practiced on. Nothing like standing on the warning track in a 100-degree afternoon of 2-a-days watching Tennessee go through some 9-on-8 and fist fights and everything else taking place. But, yeah, you're exactly right, Rob. It's a little different than it used to be. Here's the other thing, too. I mean, with the fast track of these dorms, and particularly that dorm over there at behind the right field line there at Todd Helton, that changes a little bit of your right field construction because now you're going to be able to tie that in faster than you thought because those dorms are going to get expedited since they're going to be managed and handled by a construction firm, and that's not all going to have to go through the state for bonding and all those types of things. So you're going to see those dorms get built quickly. I think the online date for them is in 26, which is pretty fast to build 3 dorms on campus. But that changes a little bit of kind of how you phase that renovation to Lindsey Nelson Stadium when you're tying that right field line into that new facility that's going to be built behind it.
Sam Smith, 22-33. We already talked about Southern Miss getting the draw over Tennessee. He said, if you had a chance, this is a really good question, if you had a chance to end it in Game 2 this weekend, do you go all out and make Drew Beam available out of the bullpen or save him for Game 3 no matter what? So this is just my opinion. I'm certainly not Frank Anderson or Tony Vitello. I mean, you always need to be prepared, just like in regional play. They were prepared with A.J. Russell to go on Monday. A.J. Russell threw on Saturday or on Sunday because he needed an inning. I mean, what a luxury to have, right? You always need to be prepared for that Game 3 for sure, and that would likely be Drew Beam, of course. But depending on how Game 1 and Game 2 go, I mean, if you have used up your arms, with all the other, elite bullpen arms you have, and you have an opportunity in Game 2 to go out there and get 6 outs and close this thing out, then, I would think about it for sure. But I just, knock on wood here, I don't, Tennessee is so deep in the bullpen, and it was a perfect example last weekend where you play 14 innings, and, I mean, that was an elite performance, I get it. You play 14 innings, use 3 pitchers, Tennessee might not be in a situation to where they would need to go to Drew Beam to close out Game 2, if that makes sense. So... Right. Just depends on how it goes, Brent. You got to be prepared for Game 3, but if you have a chance to win it in Game 2, you go win it.
I'll tell you what, if you're sitting there and you're in the 6th inning in Game 2 and you've already used Lindsey, Burns, Dolander, Halverson, you probably didn't win Game 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you probably did. You're probably not in a situation to close it out if you've had to blow through your entire starting rotation in, say, 14 innings of baseball. So my answer to that question would be I don't think that's a realistic scenario based on where they would be at that point in time. Unless somebody comes up sick. Now if you're sitting here and somebody, gets some Michael Jordan food poisoning in the hotel in Hattiesburg and you got to pull somebody out of the starting rotation. But if you've got all your arms available, I don't see a scenario where Drew Beam is pitching in Game 2. With Tennessee in a situation to close it out is what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, we'll do a couple more here. Let's go to Craig Waddle. How will the SEC decide which 2 teams play in Atlanta for the SEC championship if there are 3 teams undefeated in the conference 2024? Rob, win percentage, and then from there, I believe it would go head-to-head. Is that correct? And then there'd be another tiebreaker if they needed it.
If head-to-head doesn't work, I would imagine, it would be like it is in the other sports. You go to common opponents.
Yeah.
And, if that doesn't do it, then you start at the standings, and what's your record against the 4th team, 5th team. I mean, they will. I doubt that we'll have a 3-team tie of undefeateds, but that's how it would work.
All right, we will end here with Athrun. He's got a couple of questions. We've already talked about a few of them. Matt, who else should Tennessee worry about on visits before they OV here. Of course, looking at some of these guys who, committed elsewhere, like Fountain this week.
You worry about them all. I mean, that's just the reality of it. You worry about them all. These schools are getting them on campus to try to make their pitch and, try to shut things down. I mean, realistically, that's what June has became. I mean, that's where you're at, and that's where, it's going to continue to go. So you worry about them all until you get them here. Tennessee likes to have the final visit because most folks are going to go through the process and then go back home and dive into what they saw during the month of June. So Tennessee likes to get those final visits from guys. That's something that they preferred since Josh Heupel has been here. But you worry about them all till you can get them on campus and see where they're at. I mean, again, nobody expected Cameron Fountain to go to USC and commit this weekend. And that's just, an easy example to point to, but it happens. I wouldn't have thought Sammy Brown would have gone to Clemson and committed, but it is what it is. It happened. So you just need to get them to campus and make your pitch. And to this point, Tennessee's only hosted one official visitor, in the cycle. Sammy Brown, and they'll get their chance with Max Anderson this weekend, and then June 16th and June 23rd. Those weekends are huge for Tennessee.
All I'm saying is I was in Clemson, South Carolina last Saturday and killing time before Tennessee played. Me and Dustin Mott had circled the stadium about 17 times trying to find a way to get in. And they had official visitors there going into the stadium. They were all hugging and swaying and singing a song or something. It looked kind of strange from my vantage point, but hey, I guess it works.
Is that the second Dustin Mott name drop like in a month on the Volquest podcast?
Who had the first one?
There was it was prompted by your unfamiliarity with the media guide.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It had me discussing Dustin Minot's work on Bud Ford's foundation of his house.
Well, that's too much publicity for him. We don't need to bring it up again then. All right, last one. Just some simple thoughts on Super Regional ahead of Saturday. We'll continue to break that down as the week goes on, but I spent about an hour last night kind of digging down deep into the stats, just kind of getting the basis. Simply put, if you want the Cliff Notes of Southern Miss real quick, good ball club, first year in the Sun Belt. They won the conference tournament. They were the 2 seed or the 3 seed in the conference tournament, but they won the tournament. Tanner Hall is an absolute stud. He's a Golden Spikes Award semifinalist, right-handed pitcher. Threw 123 pitches on Friday in the regional play, came back and started Monday, gave him 3 innings. He's an absolute stud. Dustin Dickerson, shortstop. He was the Auburn Regional MVP. He had like 5 home runs in his career. He hit 6 home runs in regional play last weekend. So he's hot to say the least. And they got some guys that can swing it a little bit. They're a pretty good pitching club. Their number 2 is Billy Oldman. He was a part of a Division III or Division II national championship team last year. He's got a pretty decent record, but any way you want to spin it, again, this is a team that can hit good enough, but they can pitch pretty well as well. So Tennessee on paper I think is better. Tennessee's played tougher competition, and we'll see what happens. So they're going to go into a hostile environment this weekend. There's no doubt about it. But we'll have more in the preview and of course more in the porch later this week. That will do it for this edition of the Volquest podcast. Can't thank Exterior Home Solutions enough for making this coverage possible. If you have a need of anything for your home, summer season is here, storms, winds, roofing, decking, siding, whatever the case may be, Exterior Home Solutions can help you out. Give them a call for a free estimate at 865-524-5888. You can see them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. And one more time, remember, guys, June promo. If you're listening, you're not a member with us at Volquest, right now is the time to join. 50% off your first year, or just $1 for 3 months. 50% for the first year, $1 for 3 months. You can join us over at Volquest.com right now. For Matt Ray, Brett Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Austin Price somewhere on a golf course in America, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys sending in all your questions, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.